All right. Welcome back to another edition of Boss Beat, a latte of leadership for anyone seeking to be or build better bosses in business. I'm Ben Lichtenwallner, your host, and I'm super thrilled that today I get to kick off another cohort of IT management and leaders. So we're going to be super brief today because I gotta get that going in just a little bit here. But here at Boss Beat, we're going to talk about the 7 core principles of great leadership, which are populating on your screen right now. They are selflessness, empathy, resolve, virtuousness, authenticity, nonpartisanship, and thoroughness. They may sound fancy words, but I promise you they are very practical and actionable. And they are based on over 300 attributes found from over 2 decades of studying the world's greatest leadership experts and practitioners, the greatest leaders over history, and what they advocate. Turns out they all talk about a lot of the same things. Those 7 core principles, again, because you're so busy, we focus on keeping the examples here practical and actionable. So today, we are talking about the principle of selflessness. What does selflessness mean? Well, there are several key attributes. 3 we'll highlight today. Our first, humility. It's kind of the most obvious one of selflessness, but at the end of the day, are you out to serve yourself? Are you thinking more about yourself as being all important or super excellent, better than everybody else on your team? Or are you a little more humble? Somebody once said, and I forget who it is, I've got to get this quote later, but humility is not thinking less of ourselves, but it's thinking of ourselves less. The second attribute is stewardship. I really like this one because we don't talk about it enough in business. We hear about the concept of stewardship a lot in churches, the idea of being responsible for resources, but not necessarily owning those resources. That needs to happen a bit more in business. We talk in business so casually, we'll say things like my team, my budget, my customer. Are they really yours, or are you only a steward of those resources? So think a bit more about stewardship in business. And the last key attribute we're going to highlight here today for selflessness is modeling behaviors. Great bosses model the behaviors they expect to see in others. Too often we think, do as I say, not as I do. The reality is you get the behaviors you reflect. So at the end of the day, make sure you are focused on modeling the behaviors you expect to see in others. For a quick story or example of selflessness, I'm going to deviate a bit here from the previous sessions. I usually talk about great examples. I'm going to give you a contrast here, a terrible example of a lack of selflessness. I was at a large technology conference speaking from a stage of probably about 3,000 people or so. It was in a small stadium. And the speaker who went on stage before me was an executive at the company. This was a customer conference, customer sort of appreciation conference. And the individual who went on before me got up on stage and spoke about everything he had done in the last 12 months since the last conference. The language he used repeatedly was things like, since the last time we met, I did blah, 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 blah. I did blah, 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 blah. And of course, everything he mentioned was about their product or services and the things that the company had improved. Now, he may have been the leader responsible for that group, but how do you think the members of his team felt and the members of his organization felt hearing him take credit for everything that he had done in the last 12 months? Especially at an event that only happens once a year, here was their opportunity to say even just the slightest bit of gratitude for all the work they had done. And yet he was boasting about everything he had done. It was quite a shocking moment, and I must say he didn't exactly get received well from the audience, as you might imagine. All right. Now, how do we build selflessness in ourselves and those we seek to build better boss behaviors in? Clayton M. Christensen had a great quote. He said, generally, you can be humble only if you feel good about yourself, and you want to help those around you feel good about themselves too. Clayton Christensen was a great man, a great management and leadership expert. And I like this framing because we don't often think of humility from that perspective. What I hear in that quote is at the end of the day, the humble ones are the ones who are more confident in themselves. Oftentimes, the ones that don't seem humble may come across as overly confident, but in reality, they're probably pretty self-conscious about their behaviors. So, As you look to build better boss behaviors in yourself and others, ask yourself, are you confident enough to be humble? And when you speak of your people, the team, the company, just like I almost did there, do you reflect them as though they are yours, as though you possess them or own them? Or do you speak about them in terms of ways that you are stewarding those resources? I'm Ben Lichtenwald. Today was pretty short. I hope you liked it. If you like this sort of practical, actionable advice, please check out the programs that I offer at virtualleadershipprograms.com. Thank you, and until next time, keep serving.